Welcome back to another week of Instigating with Clarky and Drury, brought to you as always by our friends at Cool Bet Canada. Make sure you bet on the World Cup. That is the place to do it. Our friends at the Listowel Squash Courts, Listowel Vision Care, and See the Game. Ryan Drury back here with longtime Leafs TV producer Chris Clark, also known as Clarky, and we're very pleased to be joined by a great special guest. If you're a Leafs Nation member, you know this guy if you're using Twitter and surfing around social media. Better known as TicTacTOmar. He also does freelance writing for The Athletic. Of course, you can find his writing on Pension Plan Puppets as well. I know a lot of Leaf fans know this guy. Omar White joins us. Omar, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. We're at a point now where, November is past. The Leafs, I think, went 12-0 and I don't know. They have a great record, which again, scaringly, it mimics what happened last year. But, it's great. Marner setting records. The goaltending looks great. So for now, everything looks great, good. And then just like every other Leafs fan, I'm waiting until what happens in April. But for the most part, everything's great.
That's good to hear. Now, of course, you're also a consistent co-host on Zone Time for Yahoo Sports with our friend, Samantha Chang. We're going to have Samantha back on because the Canucks are not doing very well. But the Leafs...
Hey, the Canucks are doing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year. My God,
that's a low bar.
Dude,
that's a low bar.
Didn't they just shut out Colorado, our producer Adam's team, 5-0 or something?
Bar.
Come on.
Bar.
They're a lot better. They're a lot better.
It's a low bar.
Mercy's got them rolling.
You can pass along to Sam that we chirped her team if you like, Omar. But yeah, the Leafs, like you said, they actually set another record. Sheldon Keefe's Leafs continue to do this. I mean, record point total last year. They just set the highest point total they've ever had in a single month. They went 10-1-3, an unbelievable month after some panic in October, injuries still plaguing them. But man, they played so well. But let's start with the guy you brought up there, obviously Mitch Marner, setting or joining, I should say, Daryl Sittler and Eddie Olczyk with a pretty significant record. 18 straight games to the point. He had everybody biting their nails the other night, just kind of sneaking in there with an empty netter. But I guess your perspective on him doing this, because he's a guy that gets a real ass kicking from some of the fan base when things don't go well, but he consistently puts points up. And then your perspective on just the team and how together they seem to be, because all the guys out there, they were just forcing him the puck. They wanted him to get the record, Omar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to Marner, it's so unfortunate because it's a homegrown hometown kid, grew up playing for the Leafs, was drafted by the Leafs, and just how much wearing the jersey and playing for the team means for him. But unfortunately, I guess the big split kind of comes with the contract stuff and what happened with that. But I think we're at a point now where we can kind of let that go by, because as far as whether he earns or whether he deserves his contract, he has answered that question time and time again, as far as his commitment to at both ends of the ice, offensively, defensively, which I still think he doesn't get enough credit for. So just overall, he just seems to be he buzzes, he talks about it all the time. So it's great to see him, getting the recognition. The standing ovation he got afterward from Scotiabank Arena was great, was awesome. And then, to your point, Ryan, the reaction of the rest of the Leafs afterwards, when you think of a season last year where you have Matthews, breaking Rick Vai's record, scoring 60 goals, and all the records that are taking place there. So now I guess it's nice to see Mitch Marner kind of get an opportunity, I guess, to kind of, solidify his name in the Leafs organization overall. And I think seeing the team desperately trying to get him the puck, desperately trying to get him that one touch, it got to the point where Nylander, for example, had a pretty good look on his own, but passed it over to Marner. So, and even in that last couple of minutes when the net was empty, that they're trying to get the puck to Marner, and then eventually the reaction afterward, you see the relief from Marner. He's kind of shaking his head, oh my gosh, I was 2 minutes away from the streak ending. Matthews saying, let's go on the bench. Bunting, being excited and stuff. So I think moments like that where you have the teammates that are just really trying to set success up, even though it's individual success for another teammate, and then getting that afterwards, I think it's one of the small things that helps gel the group together. And this core, we talk about the core all the time. They've been through so much. Now, Unfortunately, it hasn't, transcended the first round, but there's been like a lot of like, trying times and like difficulties that they've had to go through. And I think moments like this where, they're getting that recognition, they're getting those individual moments, and they're really trying to support one another. I really do think kind of extends the, I guess, the look and the view of what it means to be a team, especially in this room. And now, again, hopefully at the end of the season, we're having a different conversation. But as far as Mitch Marner and what Mitch Marner means to this team in the city, I think we've seen everything from last night, and that's a big example for it. And hopefully he can keep it going with 19 against Tampa.
I probably one of the guys that Ryan has been referencing when it comes to guys who have been tough on Mitch.
No,
and I call
really?
him Mr. Fancy Pants at times. But Omar, I want to go back to a specific incident that I think has sunk into him. And that's when things were going bad. The Leafs were struggling against the weak teams. And God forbid, Sheldon Keefe benched him for a shift. And the shit hit the fan after that. And it was like, Sheldon had to come out the next day and explain his reasoning and whatever. But I think he's playing a lot better since that one benching. And I mean, take away a couple of bad blind back behind him passes in overtime that cost him a game. But I think that incident when he got benched that one or maybe even two shifts in that game really changed him and got him thinking, I better play better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the level of accountability you need on a team like this. And especially because the big topic that's especially that it goes around the core four is that the core four can kind of do whatever. Actually, no, that's not true. Like Nylander seems to be like the only player of the core four that seems to be the one who gets benched or gets demoted or whatever. It rarely ends up being Mitch or Austin. So I think seeing that was a nice message for the rest of the team that hey, we're all raising our standards here. Matthews had the point at the beginning of the season saying he wants to be more physical because in the playoffs when the games really matter, the physicality it picks up. So I think that was just a great example of the fact that Sheldon keeps stepping his game up and saying that, we want to do something special and do something important and have success when the games matter, then everyone needs to be on the same page. So I think to your point, Chris, that benching, might have been the kick in the ass that Marner needed because, the beginning of the season, it was tough. There were a whole bunch of random passes, turnovers in the neutral zone, which is what was, from what we've seen, uncharacteristic of Mitch. We know Mitch is a lot better, a lot more responsible with the puck. So since then, he's been great. So I think that's a great message from Sheldon Keefe, that everyone needs to play, everyone needs to buy in. And obviously it's working because they've had a great month and hopefully it keeps going.
You mentioned hopefully things will change in April. Of course, all us Leaf fans do. Have you seen anything that would indicate to you that things may be different this playoff?
Yes, because one thing that always takes place, that always happens with this team, is that when something doesn't go according to plan, that's when things start to kind of implode, right? We think back to the first thing that comes to mind is the Montreal series, where unfortunately Tavares had that scary injury, that scary collision. They lose that game, which makes sense. They battle back. They had their one game away, and they just can't get it done. They don't have that killer instinct because probably the thought process was, okay, well, we have Matthews and Tavares. They have who, whatever. We can just deal with them, whatever. The series against Columbus, which wasn't the playoffs, but still a playoff-like mentality in the bubble. This is just an easy team. We'll just go through it. Okay, well, what happens when that easy team decides to play you tougher? What happens when you have a couple of injuries? And this season, we've had a lot of significant injuries. Riley's out. Brody's out. When Brody went down, I was like, okay, well, now we're in trouble. But the team overall has been able to play better, has been making smarter decisions, especially when it comes to game management. That's one thing that's been driving me nuts about the team. It's you're up it's a 2-1 hockey game. It's a minute left in the period. Why are we trying to make a stretch breakout pass from the defensive zone or whatever? So I think handling the changes and the quote unquote hiccups when it comes to injuries and such, and other players stepping up and players around them as well playing the right way, we're seeing more like 2-1, 3-1 victories. Leads aren't being blown and stuff. So I think that mentality has changed my perspective and given me a little bit more hope that maybe it's finally sunk in that, like, hey, we can win a game 2-1 and that's fine. Austin Matthews, I don't need to score 2 goals every game. I can just score 1 and then lock it down. If I'm Marner, I don't have to put up like 3 assists a game. If I'm like Rasmus Sandin or Timothy Liljegren, I don't have to like do a spinorama like out of the defensive zone. I can just make the simple play, make the easy play. And I think those changes is what's going to lead to long-term success. And finally, it's starting to seem like they've got the message.
It does seem that seem that way. And Clarky, you and I have had this conversation 100,000 times, but Omar's on the show for the first time. I'd love his perspective on it. I'm sure you can already gander. I'm not a Leaf fan. I'm a decently large Capitals fan.
That's fair.
The similarities between the two teams continue to be so eerie to me. Like, I went through a decade of just like, why is this team not getting over the hump? And eventually they did. And the similarities continue. The Marner benching, I'm glad you brought that up, Clarky. Remember that year that the Caps finally did it, Barry Trotz benched Ovechkin for a game. He sat him because he was late to a team meeting, and he sat the greatest goal scorer of all time. Didn't even put him on the ice because he said, this is unacceptable. Like, it was a tone setter. And the team on the ice that year started to realize, including that dude, I don't have to score a hat trick. I don't have to make that big hit and throw myself out of position. I can let the game kind of come to me. We're talented enough. I've got teammates that are talented enough. I can let the game come to me. And something happened the other night in that Leaf game where they beat the Sharks that, kind of lends to what you're saying, Omar, a bit of a change in philosophy. Sheldon Keefe last year said, we don't score enough playoff type goals. We don't go to the net enough. We rely on the rush. We're relying on our skill. And it bit them again in the playoffs. Matthews scores against San Jose, and he goes from behind the net in a scrum right to the front into the punishment zone, and Hollowell finds him with a beautiful fake shot pass. But Matthews right there on the doorstep in the danger zone. He's not at the top of the circle ripping a one-timer cheese. He's right there on the doorstep, and Tavares has always done it. Nylander's starting to do it. They're scoring in different ways too, Omar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and the big conversation piece when it comes to Matthews, because like everyone expects like, oh, Matthews is going to get 50 goals, 60 goals. So when he's not scoring at the pace we expected, well, something's going wrong, is he injured or whatever. And a point that kept getting brought up, and I want to say it was like a couple of games ago, where Matthews scored like his first goal at 5-on-5 on a forehand shot. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's big. I think that's great. Because to your point, Ryan, you're not going to get those clean looks in the playoffs. They're not going to like give you an open lane in the playoffs. No, you're going to have to go to the front of the net. You're going to have to whack something in, or you're going to have to deflect the shot. Now, Matthews, has shown that he has the ability and the talent to make himself invisible, evade defensive coverage and all that type of stuff. Granted, at the beginning of the season, teams were making it very, very difficult. It was very clear that the book was out on Matthews. Like, any cross ice passes they were attempting on the power play were being stopped. So now, instead of like relying on those cross ice passes, they're doing more short, quick passes, those tic-tac-toe plays, and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, they've been burned over and over again. And I remember, I want to say it was the Montreal series again, where just the power play was just non-existent. It's got to the point where like they would get a power play and it's like, oh gosh, can we return it? Like, we get a penalty shot instead, because it just wasn't generating anything, because they do the same thing. Marner would have it go up and down the wall, ring it around the side. You get it to Nylander, up and down the wall, passes it to Riley, back to Nylander. This pass, looking for the highlight reel play, looking for like the one-timer or like the curl and drag. But that's not always going to be the case. You're not always going to have that. You're not always going to have that. So because of that, I think it is good that Matthews is starting to, I guess, go to those areas a lot more. Tavares has always been a player that's been willing to do that. Nylander has had success in front of the net, and Marner is shooting more. Granted, as a playmaker, he does have a tendency to pass more often. But last year we saw a good great improvement of him. Of that, he's starting to shoot more, and after 35 goals, if he continues that and he's starting to see himself more as a shooting threat, then teams aren't always going to look him off and assume he's going to pass. They're actually going to try to maybe stand square to him a little bit. So I think the variety, and that's something that the Leafs always seem to put themselves in, where they're a creative team offensively, but then they stick to the same things. And I don't want to like dump on them, but I think that's been something that's been so interesting seeing the power play with Sandin on the back end instead of Riley, is that instead of getting the passes, now we're getting more shots, and those shots are creating rebounds. Nylander got a goal earlier a couple of games ago from Sandin taking a shot and then Nylander scoring off of the rebound. So changing it up and mixing it up is going to be huge, especially when you have teams that are pro scouting you. You have Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and William Nylander on your team. They're going to be looking at what your tendencies are, and you have to find ways to mix it up a little bit.
You know, we went into this season, at least I did as a Leaf fan, really questioning the goaltending. And if there's one thing that I believe has been really good and really consistent all season long, even though Ryan keeps telling me, just wait, Samsonov will do what he does every year. Wait. Well, so far, knock on wood, that's been a very good tandem, and I even think Shelgren's filled in admirably as well. Going into the season, where was your mind at with the goaltending, and how do you think it's turned out?
Oh, I thought we were screwed. Okay. I thought we were screwed. When when the reports came out that the Leafs were interested in Matt Murray, the first question was like, why? Like, there's like Billy Husso's available, Darcy Kemper's there. I mean, like, I'm like, is there no one else? Like, is there no one else?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just sitting there thinking, okay, well, this is slightly concerning, but you know what? You know, as Leafs fans, we play the what if game. You know, hey, you know, Matt Murray, he won some Stanley Cups one day. What if he becomes that? That'd be great. Usually,
he looks way better than I thought he was.
Oh my gosh, I've been so surprised because literally all I wanted was like, just give us league average goaltending, and I will not say a single thing. Because last year, for a long part, we didn't get league average goaltending. Jack Campbell had a sick month, and then it was kind of up and down. Peter Mrazek, that's a whole different conversation.
We don't have to talk about Peter Mrazek.
We don't have to go down that. But like, yeah, all I wanted was just like league average goaltending, or at the very least, give the team a chance to win. You don't have to like make dramatic save after save, but like if they're buzzing in the offensive zone. And then, like, you know, mistakes happen. The puck gets coughed up at the blue line, and you have, like, you know, a rush or something. Just make the save. Give the team a chance. And that's something that bit the Leafs last year. And I've been so surprised of how my expectations have been just, like, expanded. Because both goalies have looked very steady. There hasn't been a game where I've watched either Murray or Samsonov and said, like, oh, my gosh, like, okay, here it comes. Here comes the goal. Granted, Samsonov has to stop trying to play the puck every time he tries. Every time, because I remember that every time he does it, I'm like, okay, now I see it. Let's stop doing that. But besides that, like they both have given the team confidence to play their game, to take chances if they have them. And then also, Clark, to your point, Erik Källgren has stepped in pretty well. Because even when Matt Murray went down after the first game, another like, okay, here we go again. You know, Källgren stepped in. He wasn't amazing. He wasn't like a trailblazer or anything, but like he gave the team the goaltend that they needed to at very least have an opportunity. So on both ends, I think that's been great. And you know, watching the team for the rest of the season, that gives me some confidence as well, because now we have our tandem for the first time in a while. We have both Murray and Samsonov healthy for the most part. But in the event that a goaltender goes down and Källgren has to go in the net, I'm not going to be sweating bullets because I've seen what Källgren can do. He can give the team an opportunity. And I think that's all we've wanted for the longest time. Just give us an opportunity to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very admirable, and I've been impressed, especially with Samsonov. I mean, like you said, though, I mean, the other night he did against San Jose. Every time he comes out of his crease, I get like PTSD almost. I'm like, oh my God, please stay in the net. But that said, I don't really care. We won a Stanley Cup recently. So,
Mm.
but that being said, he's been great. And Murray, when healthy, has been rock solid. And that's definitely good news. And I hope that that can continue. I want to ask you quickly. I like to do this sometimes. And Clarky, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Just a final note on Mitch Marner. Like, I think the guy has more than earned his money. I mean, you get paid to have playoff success largely, but you cash the checks during the regular season, and you can't argue with his production. He's legitimately one of the top 3. Some could argue top 2 right wingers in the league right now. Anybody would take him on their team, on their power play, everything. He's one of only 2 players to ever be the MVP of his league playoffs in the CHL, of course, the OHL back in the day with the Knights, and be the MVP of the Memorial Cup playoffs. Can either of you name the other guy? He is retired.
Oh, God.
Played in the QMJHL. It was not Sidney Crosby.
Played in the Q. A good NHL career as well.
Good. Yeah. Really good NHL career.
Does his name start with an M?
It does not.
Ah, okay.
It's not Mario.
No.
I was just saying that because I was having a conversation with someone. Like, we're just looking at we just randomly look at Legends numbers, and we just looked at Mario Lemieux's junior numbers. Just hilariously stupid.
Is it Pierre Turgeon?
It's not Pierre Turgeon.
That's just a
little
guess.
later. Started in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Won a Stanley Cup with a man named John Tortorella.
Oh, God. So then that's a Tampa team in 2004.
It is the Tampa team.
Oh, God.
It's a stumper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I give.
It is
What was it?
Richards.
Oh, is it?
Oh,
okay. My other guess was going to be Cavalier, but I don't think he was. No, probably not. Okay,
yeah,
Brad Richards.
Well, he didn't win a Memorial Cup, but yeah, it's interesting piece of trivia to take home with you there.
Thank you very much.
Now, Omar, I know, and I love watching Zone Time. Of course, our friend Sam's on there. We love Sam. I've been chatting with her for a long time. She's great. The broadcast, again, if you're not listening to that, it's fantastic. But I love the panel on there. You and Avery, her, Julian, everybody. It's just fun to watch. And I know you guys like to cover all topics around the league. So let's start with a few.
Hold on, I got another Leaf question. Can we just stick with the Leafs here? There's nothing else. There's really no other team. So just to wrap up, Omar, just to wrap up the Leaf conversation.
Yeah.
Two-parter. What do they have to do moving forward, trade-wise, before the trade deadline? And do you think Dubas has it in him to be able to pull something off?
So as far as what they need to do, I do think we need an upgrade at some point on the left wing, especially with Tavares, because right now Sheldon Keefe is not at a point where he wants to or is willing to. I don't say willing, more like wants to, or feels comfortable with playing Nick Robertson on that second line. Whatever. Kerfoot seems to be his go-to to go back there, and it's just not it. I know that Kerfoot does a lot of little things, and he had a pretty good game against San Jose with 2 assists, some great plays, but just Kerfoot I don't think matches styles, and he also just doesn't have the finishing. And it's been and I've seen it a lot this season where Keefe has tried to play Kerfoot in the top 6, and he gets some amazing looks. There was one game where he had 3 clean looks and just missed or just whiffed or just didn't get enough on the shot. And
if he hadn't have been celebrating a goal once that didn't go in, he would have got a goal then.
And then
too.
right down there.
Just wait till it goes in the net.
Oh my gosh, exactly, right. So I think that needs to be the focus, is trying to get some maybe a mix of grit and skill that you can play on that second line. With Tavares, I think that could be that should be the focus. Now, as far as will Dubas do it, I think he has to. I mean, I know for the most part, Dubas is kind of shied away from making the big go for it deal. But this year really does seem if something's not done in the playoffs, there's going to be some significant change. And I really hope that that fix on left wing isn't let's just wait for Matthew Nyes. I really hope that isn't it, because I think that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid coming right out of college. And you don't know what's going to happen when his championship, like maybe his team has like a devastating loss. You don't know what's going to do to him, and you don't want to bring him to Toronto and make him to be the savior, especially again on a team where he shouldn't need to be the savior when you have Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander. So I hope that isn't the goal, and I hope that Dubas and the Leafs are looking around. But this has to be it. This has to be the year where you just say, okay, you know what? Like, let's evaluate what prospects we want to have. Or we want to keep long term. We'll keep the players that we actually think are going to be projects. Or if that's or whatever else. Hey, we just need to do something this year. We need to like show the fans, the team, whatever, that we can do something. So screw all that. Let's just go all in. And it's been a long time for when the Toronto Maple Leafs were like all in on a year. We saw Florida do it last year, and it worked to an extent, right? But sometimes you just have to like look around and say, you know what, like we've gotten to this point. We are better, we're more mature, we're more prepared, whatever. We just need that extra boost. So if there was ever a year for Dubas to make that like let's go for it move, like it would be this year.
Yeah.
I certainly agree, and I don't want to scare anybody and be this guy, but those Florida Panthers, they wouldn't have even made it to the second round if it wasn't for a guy named Ilya Samsonov. Anyway, moving on. I'm just saying. I want to ask you as well, just about some ongoing stories in the league. Arizona, it just continues to be a thorn in many of our sides, particularly here in Canada, where there's a beautiful new rink in Quebec that could easily house a team tomorrow. Tomorrow night, the Nordiques could come back. But Tempe City Council voted unanimously to approve this entertainment district. They're going to put it to a public vote. Honestly, and I'm not trying to dump on people. I know that there's fans of the team, but I don't know that if you canvassed 1,000 people on the street in downtown Tempe that, a few hundred of them would even know who the Coyotes are. What's your opinion of this whole situation? Because I'm just really fed up with it.
I don't get it. I don't get like it kind of seems like it's like a mission to like either one, keep the Coyotes relevant, or two, make it known that like the Coyotes are important. And I'm not, again, just to your point, I'm not trying to like dump on Arizona and such, but like with all the things that's been happening when it comes to like the arena and so on and so forth, and like I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe there is this idea that it could be something huge, and of course it already has. Like if it wasn't for the Coyotes, Austin Matthews may not be a hockey player. So like I'm not going to completely completely dump on that. But this is like it really is hard to watch what's going on as far as like the business side of things for the Coyotes, and just think like, could this not have worked anywhere else? And so I don't know. I don't know what the plan and what the thought process is. Hey, maybe they hope that Arizona wins the lottery and Bedard goes to the Coyotes, but I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm just as confused as you are when it comes to that, because like, to your point, and when you brought up there, it just seems like there are so many like other options that could work, but hey, the Coyotes, that seems to be Bettman's child. He'll do whatever he can to keep that team running.
Yeah, it's a big TV market, and I understand that. And Gary, if there's one thing we know about Gary, he is a self-assured narcissist. He does not want to admit he's wrong. It pained him. Trust me, it pained him. Go back and watch that press conference when they announced Atlanta was moving to Winnipeg. I thought he was going to fall down. I mean, he lost whatever hair he had left that day. Sorry, Gary. I'm actually not sorry. Another big story, obviously, is somewhat sad news. And, Leaf fans are kind of dealing with this right now with Jake Muzzin, and we're hoping that he's okay. But some sad news out of Pittsburgh. Chris Letang, and, the Penguins have really turned it around, but Chris Letang suffering a second stroke. He had one back in the 13-14 season, and now you're starting to kind of wonder, he seems optimistic he can come back. Mm-hmm. Of course, the conversation now, should he? And this guy's won 3 cups. He had a great junior career. He's represented Canada. He's done a little bit of everything. I think he's a Hall of Famer myself. What's your opinion on that? And just obviously a sad situation for a good guy, a well-liked guy in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's moments like with Chris Letang, and you also mentioned Jake Muzzin, where it's just like you have to separate player from person, and there's life after hockey, right? Like, and you want to think like, can he do whatever he wants to do afterwards? And Chris Letang, aside from the stroke, has had like, a injury, I don't want to say injury full, but injury influenced career. So I guess that's just a conversation that he has to have with his family. He has to have with the organization. Obviously, if he feels good, if he feels okay, if he's getting the right advice from like medical staff and medical teams and such, then that'd be great. The game is better with Chris Letang in it now. But on the other side is you have to think about the person, and he's accomplished a lot. And I don't think anyone would or nor should wag a finger or shake their head if a decision did come down where Chris Letang said, what, I think for the betterment of myself and my family, I think I'm going to hang them up. But again, I guess we'll just have to see there. Now, as far as being a Hall of Famer, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, when you think of the Pittsburgh Penguins, man, like, yeah, we think of Sidney Crosby and we think of Evgeny Malkin, but like Chris Letang has been there too. Like, and there are so many plays that can come to mind of what he did on the blue line, especially those years where like Pittsburgh was really, really dominant. So when it comes to that, and I also think I'm laughing because I also think of like all like the trade rumors that would always happen of like people like desperately wanting like Letang to be on their team. Like I remember like there was a run where like every year there was a Chris Letang to the Montreal Canadiens rumor like all the time. So he's a special player and a special defenseman, and I think definitely one of like the early signs of like defensemen, of how defensemen were going to be moving forward, as far as like skating and speed and hockey IQ and hockey awareness from the blue line. So I hope he's okay. Now, again, not just as a player, as a person, and I hope whatever decision he makes, is well thought, which I assume it will be. But if it does come to a point where this is the end for Chris Letang, as a hockey player, I don't think it'll be the end of him as part of like the NHL overall, especially the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like he's a player that I can definitely see like working within the organization at some point. And that'd be great to see long term.
Yeah, can definitely see that guy ending up being like a director of player development or something.
Exactly.
Like that. Final one, and please, I know Clarky, we talk about the Leafs a lot. I do this a lot for you, all right? And Omar's a big Leaf fan too. We got our Leaf chat in. Please allow me to indulge a little bit of my guy.
Go ahead.
Because
yeah,
the big boy.
He overtook Wayne. Yeah.
The big boy broke a Wayne Gretzky record. And when you say something like that, it's pretty unbelievable. Most road goals of all time now. Ovi's got it, 403. Omar, and then Clarky, if you have anything to add, because I know you love Ovi. Just how incredible is this? Like, I've watched, I would venture to say 90% of every one of his games live. I can't believe I'm even saying that it's still within reach that he could break the all-time record. But just to do something like this, the longevity, he's never hurt, and he just keeps on doing it. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, Ovechkin's like a hilarious player, because I remember there'd be years where it's like you think, okay, maybe the goal scoring is kind of gonna take a step back, or we're gonna slow down a little bit, and then he'll just rifle off like hat trick, 2-goal game, hat trick, 2-goal game, like out of nowhere, and then end up winning a Rocket or whatever. But what he's the fact that he's close. Like the fact that he is close to putting up numbers that could surpass Wayne Gretzky as far as totals go. I want to say he's pretty close to Gordie Howe right now. And to your point, he passed Gretzky's road scoring total. Like it just speaks to, again, just the raw production that we've seen from Ovechkin throughout his entire career. Like we can, I think for the most part, like everyone will have like 5 OV goals in their head that they like won't forget. And unfortunately, Clark, you can probably speak to this. As a Leafs fan, we have watched Ovechkin decide, you know what, it's the Leafs. let's have some fun on a Saturday night, and just like clap like a one timer from the same spot, which that still blows my mind. That like the same spot, he always gets his shot, he always gets his cookies there. So like Ovechkin is a like special isn't even a word to describe it. Just the raw offensive power and the raw threat and the raw production. And again, the fact that we're at this point now where we're surpassing Gretzky is even within reach. Again, just speaks to what he's been able to do over the years. And I guess making connection to the Leafs and what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode is that Ovechkin was a player who, for the most part, was very, again, individualistic when it comes to the production, but then learned the importance of everything else. That, hey, I can miss this opportunity for a goal if it means making this defensive play here or covering for my defenseman here and such. And I remember, I think it was when Babcock was still around. I think even Ovi like made that direct comparison, saying how, like it's something that he had to learn, and maybe the team is kind of along the lines that way. And hopefully, if you're the Leafs, like you do want to have something like that. Washington, for the longest time, they can never make it out of the second round. Either the Rangers or Pittsburgh would knock them out. And then that year where they finally beat Pittsburgh, it was just like that final relief. So when it comes to the Capitals, it's always they always think of Ovechkin, and again, just the raw production he's been putting up for so long has been great. And I hope he does it. I hope he does it. I think it would be so sick. And that is not to like throw any shade on like Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky is and always will be the greatest player or one of the greatest players to ever play. But just saying that, like, I've been watching Alex Ovechkin his entire career, and we have watched him slowly get closer and closer to Gretzky, and maybe even at one point pass it, would be something so special. And maybe the NHL can make some money off of it and kind of set it up as like a will he or won't he. But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting as we record this. Of course, Thursday, December 1st, we're recording this. They are in Seattle tonight, the Caps. But as we record this, he's 101 back of Gratz. He's 9 back of passing Howe, who has 802, and he would be only the third 800-plus goal scorer in NHL history. It's really incredible. 800's not far from 8, and I feel lucky to have watched a lot of his games. Clarky, you got anything to add to that, or?
No, I just can't get that controller disconnected image out of my head when it comes to Ovi. But it happens to the best of them. There were no video games,
right? Yeah, well, what image I can't get out of my head.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Is this?
No doubt. I get it.
Low blow.
I get it.
I get that image.
It's fine.
I don't know if you.
It's fine.
I don't know if you want to have a look at that too.
He'll probably break the record. I'm not disputing that. I remember
that's the only
Wayne
image
Gretzky,
I think of.
And Wayne Gretzky used to score a lot of goals against the Leafs as well, and he played his best game in Game 7 against the Leafs in '93. So I've seen both of the best goal scorers in the league beat up on my team over the years. So just leave me out of this conversation from now on. Please.
That's fair.
Maybe one day we'll be talking about Matthews breaking both of them.
Yeah, potentially. I mean,
that would be cool.
He'd have to gear it up because he's already a little behind Ovi's pace, but he'd have to gear it up. But he's you
never know.
He's the torchbearer now. I mean, he's kind of taking.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is incredible, and I can't see Ovi stopping. Like, he's just going to keep playing, and he's going to play as old as Gordie Howe if he has to.
Russian machine never breaks. The old adage. It just keeps on ticking, man. It's I don't know. He's built a little different, and so is our friend Omar. We really appreciate Omar White coming on here. And speaking of images, Omar, I mean, if you're a Leaf fan, you're not following TicTacTOmar, which is maybe the greatest Twitter handle I've ever heard.
Is that how you would say it?
Yeah. A lot of people ask like where I came up with it. And literally, tic-tac-toe goals are like my favorite type of play. I just love it. I just love like the quickness of it. Then obviously like it fits my name pretty well. And then the TO because Toronto.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
I got that.
Omar, it's the best Twitter handle I think I've ever heard, especially in hockey.
Wow.
And when you speak of images, Omar is the gift god for Leaf Nation. He's always got the gifts. You got to follow him. TicTacTOmar, very easy to find. He's, of course, consistently a co-host on Yahoo Sports Zone Time, freelancing for The Athletic. And, of course, you can read his great stuff at Pension Plan Puppets, which is also a great name. Omar White, we really appreciate you doing this, my friend. Best of luck to your Leafs and Clarkie's Leafs too, as begrudging as that is. We really appreciate your time, man. You were great, and you're a friend of the show. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, let's like fast forward like a couple months. Hopefully, when I'm back, we can say, "Hey, Clarkie, they finally did it." And it's like, "They want a cup?" No, they finally won a round. That would be. It's hilarious how low the bar is. Like, a lot of people ask me all the time, like, what do you want? I'm like, just win a round. They're like, that's it. I'm like, yes. I know it should be higher. I know that the aspiration should always be the cup. But selfishly, I just want to see them. I just want to hear someone say, okay, here we go. The second round.
Round 2.
That's all. As soon as I hear that, I'm fine. I'm completely fine. So yeah, absolutely. If they end up doing it, I'd love to come back and we can celebrate. Celebrate and talk about how they ended up doing it.
Perfect.
Well, we'll mark you down for like April 30th, March 2nd-ish. We'll put you, we'll pre-schedule you. Hey, you got to walk before you can run, my friend. Omar, it's been a blast, man. Say hi to our friend Sam, and thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, I had the chance to sit down with Lucknow native and star track and field runner Julie-Anne Staehli, who won the women's 10K title at the Canadian Cross Country Championships. I caught up with her on a well-deserved vacation down in Cancun. That's coming up next here on Instigating. Welcome back to Instigating. Ryan Drury here, and I'm very pleased to be joined by a great special guest. We've chatted with her before. She's an Olympian, and now she is a 10K women's champion at the Canadian XC Championships. Julie-Anne Staehli, a Lucknow area native, is with us on the show. Julie-Anne, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Obviously, another big chapter in your career. You are the 10K women's champion at the recent XC Championships in Ottawa. Tell us a little bit about the race, the prep going into it, and obviously the feeling afterward coming out on top.
Definitely. I think it's been sort of a culmination this fall season. Coming off of summer, it just felt a little bit, I guess, unfulfilled in terms of my performance. I had an injury earlier in the spring, so coming into September, I knew that I wanted to, continue on and really push through the fall season. So cross country championships was sort of the finishing event, and I said I would never run on grass again, but it just so happened to be a world qualifier as well. So as I worked through, November, I did a few 5K races. I won the 5K championships in Moncton at the beginning of September. Then I had done another couple 5Ks, and it was just, I knew that my fitness was in a good spot. Mind you, 10K is double my distance. So I think I just put all sort of doubt and worry aside. I went into that race knowing this is going to be fun. And the cross country course, it's a totally different game. There was a big hill, so it ends up being technical. It was 5x2K loops around Mooney's Bay in Ottawa. So we had sandy sections. There was a bit of mud. The weather was fortunately really good, but it's just a totally different style of racing, and I just tried to do as little work as possible. And once I was, it was 5 of us, 3 of us, 2 of us, and once I was in the lead and I still had 3 kilometers, it was from there, it just felt so good. And I felt like I was just running on a high, and into the last loop, it just, the energy of the crowd and being home in Canada again and having that, it was really special.
Yeah, obviously. And it's great to win. And not only did you win, going double the normal distance you're used to. We all know you're adept at 5K, obviously, having won races in that distance. Not only do you win, You won by 22 seconds, which feels like a pretty wide margin to me. But tell us a little bit about the difference in strategy, because obviously it's double the distance, but you mentioned the terrain changes as well. How differently do you have to approach running on all those different terrains, sand, grass, some pavement probably? What is going through your mind as you change onto those different terrains?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just the footing alone, when you think about a track compared to the road, compared to the grass, like you're constantly on uneven ground. And I think it starts to become more of a strength-based sport, which that's sort of my thing. Like my strength is my strength. And as a runner, you have to be able to sort of be adaptable in a lot of ways. And that is exactly what cross country is being able to recover quickly after, doing that big incline, or once it got to the sand section. It's like picking your line on the track. Everything is conditioned, everything is sort of set to be optimal, and this is sort of using sort of tactical approach, and being quick on your feet, but smart as well in terms of how you run that. And it's sort of a pack mentality, because time is irrelevant. You're just looking to win. And in this style of race, we had 3 or 4 Olympians, I believe, in the field. We're coming from 1500, 10K, it's sort of this culmination, there's marathoners in that race. So you don't really know what to expect on the day. And the best thing you can do is really just use that strength in the group and not do any more work than necessary. I think that was my biggest piece, is just, relax. Like I was constantly just sort of, shaking out my arms and just feeling like, this race is like being paced for me. Like I just felt like I was, in a workout with my teammates back in Boston, and, tucking in and just really going along for that ride until you slowly feel like that momentum of the group is starting to kind of come back to you a little bit. And then you sort of just like strike. And I think once you make that move, you have to commit. And I was hoping it would come down to a 1 kilometer kick, because I do have some speed, and I think it's always exciting if you can really just start to hammer and wind it down. But it was a slow sort of burn at the finish, the 3K, about, good 10 minutes worth of running by myself. Luckily, I had the gator with the camera set up in front of me. So I had something to focus on and really just, not just, fall asleep and let myself settle, but still be, pushing and pushing. And once I turned the corner, the finish was it was a neat sort of setup. It was sort of this like bowl type finish line. And once you're getting close to that, about 100 meters out, knowing I had a good 150 meters on the next competitor, then you're smiling at that point. You don't need to be pushing harder than necessary. And I think that's what's special about cross country.
Well, and there's so much strategy that goes into it. I mean, you're not just taking off out of the blocks and running. You're thinking about the distance, where you are, the people around you. So, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, the different kind of zones you go through mentally throughout the race. Tell us a little bit about the start. Like you're there with the rest of the pack. What is your strategy, and how does your approach change 2K and 4K in, and then you start to separate a little bit? What are you thinking from the start till maybe the middle point of the race where you start going, I'm pulling away a little bit?
Yeah, 10K. I mean, it's about 5 minutes worth of solid running. And, coming from 15 minutes of concentrated effort, the 5K to me is very quantifiable in terms of, first K settle in, a K to kind of like get, in the mix. And then, I have such a intuition in terms of how to run 5 kilometers well and to leave nothing to the finish. So being on a start line with over 100 other women, all heading forward, all wanting to be in the front pack. It was sort of off into this like distance with the beach front. So it was really a cool course the way it was designed. But the first corner was straight uphill, about, I would say, 35, 50 meter hill. The grade, I don't know, but as slow as I would ever want to be running at the steepest incline I would, want to do in a race. But there it was already like, you can't attack that first hill. You have to be able to get to the top. Your legs need to flush. You need to get to the top, feeling like you can sort of continue carry down the backside of the hill. And each loop being 2 kilometers, you can sort of break the race into sort of these laps. And that's how I'm sort of wired being a track and field athlete is, you're coming through, okay, 1 lap done, 4 to go. Okay, 3 laps done, I'm over halfway, 1 lap to go. This is it. And I would say, in 10K, you don't want too many people still in the front pack at, a lap to go. I think we were slow to start, and I was a bit worried that we would have too much company and we leave it a little bit too long. But slowly, I think people, settle in a little bit, and it's really tough to make up those gaps. And for me, the biggest thing is just listening to the breathing of my competitors, really kind of like tapping into like, how are they, handling the hill? Like, are they recovering well? Are they starting to kind of like, sway a little bit? And that only gives me confidence. It fuels me when I feel like, I can get my heart rate down. I'm not, heaving. And, once I feel relaxed, then it's just like, that gives you a lot of strength.
It's incredible the amount of, mental toughness that goes into it. Cause I think people that just aren't familiar with it think I'm just running. And I mean, I know me, I wouldn't be able to focus on anything else other than myself, probably gasping through the first couple K, but you're actually paying attention and listening for breathing, watching people and how they're striding. Like, it's an incredible amount of mental focus. And you kind of touched on, the finish where you're well ahead with like 3K to go and you're kind of focusing on the camera to keep concentration, and you're anticipating kind of it being a little closer, but with 3K and you're ahead. What are you telling yourself? Like, cause you're not prepared for that necessarily. And you got 3K, you're well ahead. What are you saying? Are you talking yourself through something to kind of keep focused for that 3K? What's going through your mind?
Yeah, it's never over until it's over. And I think I've learned that lesson on the track a few times of coming into the finish and having that elation, like the celebration. You see the finish, you see the banner, and I've already won the race in my mind. And then somebody just quickly gets that last second kick. And I've been the person who's made the move. And I've also been the person who's been, scalped at the finish line. So in this situation, in that last 10 minutes, I had spectators constantly like, 20 minutes on, like 20 minutes back, or 100 meters, so I was trusting that a little bit. Like, there's so many loops. It was very technical. I was constantly running tangents. There was not one step that wasn't, calculated. It wasn't like I was an autopilot sort of like, in a day's running. I was pretty aware the whole time of, where I was and, how I needed to keep the foot on the gas. But at some point in a cross country race, if you've made up enough ground and you're still pushing, not only are you 22 seconds ahead, but that second place person would have to make up that difference. So almost, if we're running, 3:20 per kilometer in my finishing, I was probably down closer to 3-minute Ks, as I was kicking, then that's, a lot of distance to make up. But, I just remember on the final loop, it was coming up the final hill on the last one, this is the 5th time going up. And, it was as if like, I almost felt like I could just push myself like up the hill. And at that point I knew I was in a good spot, and it was like, just stay on your feet at this point.
Well, you crushed it. I mean, dare I say you blew away the competition, which is incredibly impressive. And we're so happy for you. I know people around here have been talking about it a lot. I see all the posts, and people are just thrilled for you. Obviously, you mentioned it's a world championship qualifier. So now we're kind of heading into a bit of a winter break. We're obviously still a couple of years away from the next Olympics, which of course you're an Olympian, you've competed, so you know what that's all about. What are you building toward now? What is your kind of preparation? What's your winter like? And what are the big events that you're going to build toward in 2023?
So yeah, looking ahead, December is going to be really some downtime. I'm actually calling in from Cancun right now. So really taking, the recovery seriously. I think that's really important mentally and physically, obviously, but stepping away, you know, when everything's going well, it feels like you just want to, you know, get into another race just to be able to, you know, see what you can do. But it's when it's going really well that you need to be able to step back. And just talking to my coach, it's like, you know, take a week, you know, 7 days, you know, try not to think about running, you know, still be a little bit active and, you know, looking after yourself. But leading into sort of the Christmas break, usually like, yeah, this is the time that I kind of step away a little bit before we get into the new year. And we spend a lot of the winter and spring, about 4 months in Flagstaff, Arizona at altitude. So the weather conditions are favorable in comparison to Boston. So January will be spent there. February, World Cross Country Championships are happening on the 18th in Australia. So there will be some sort of lead up towards there, a national training camp potentially. California is usually a spot for that. So February will be sort of on the road. And then as we lead towards the summer, World Outdoors will be in Budapest at the end of August. So it will be sort of a stretched out year. And it will be really important to be smart in terms of how things are scheduled so that, you know, you're peaking at the right times and you're also able to carry that fitness through.
Well, you're already pretty well traveled, and it sounds like you're going to add some more mileage on there. So that's incredible. Obviously, we're going to be excited for February. We'll be paying attention to what you're up to in Australia. Maybe we can try and catch up with you before you go. We'll certainly want to chat with you after. Congratulations again, Julianne. I mean, like I said, a lot of people around here are very excited. People are following what you're doing. Of course we are. And we're so appreciative of your time. Enjoy your vacation and best of luck getting set for the World Championships. We really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with more Instigating up next. Well, thanks to our friend Julianne Staehli back here on Instigating with Clarkie and Drury. Thanks to Julianne for catching up with us down in Cancun on vacation. She's a beauty. What an incredible accomplishment. She's an Olympian. She'll be an Olympian again for sure. And then winning a 10K title. And Clarkie, you know this. She's a 5K specialist, goes into this 10K, and she blows the competition off the track. She won by 22 seconds, which doesn't maybe sound like a lot, but in track and field, that's a massive win. Good for Julianne. What a beaut, joining us down from Cancun. Heck of an accomplishment for the Lucknow native.
Yeah, for sure. And keep going. That's all, like just keep it going. It's very nice to see a local athlete perform as well as she is. And we're going to get another local athlete on in the next month or so. So stay tuned for a local swimmer to come on.
That's right. It's going to be exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I love the tease. That's good. You learned something at Leafs TV, didn't you? That's right. Good.
Yeah.
Keep it
always say what's coming up next.
That 100%. Now, we got to talk about some things real quick. Let's just get it out of the way. Canada 0-3 at the World Cup. It's over.
Whatever. I never watched. You told me not to watch, so I didn't.
Wasn't
did
good.
You? You said you weren't going to watch a second, Ryan.
Highlights. I mean, I didn't turn any of the games on live. Okay. I just don't care. But I saw highlights, obviously.
I'm sorry. I'm just not a soccer fan. I don't care.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I don't care.
Hey, they're
I don't care.
3, but
yeah.
Joint hosting.
Anyway.
Joint hosting in 2026.
Can I just share something funny? I don't tweet a lot. I know. Someone blocked me on Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah. Mike Harrington from the Buffalo News, who
I know who he is. Yeah.
He just unbelievable. And I know he's probably just trying to rile up the Leaf fans, but he comes across as a guy who just doesn't know hockey.
He's pretty over the top.
He was all over the Leaf fans. He was all over the Leaf fans for that goal that the net came off and they put it in. Buffalo scored a goal that way in the Winter Classic a year ago. He couldn't remember that one. But he just kept saying that just happens because the Leafs get all the calls. I'm like, you don't watch any Leaf games because they don't usually get any calls. However, it was just funny. And I went at him a couple times and he blocked me for just stating facts. He didn't like that too much. But I'm like, wow, I can't believe I finally got blocked on Twitter. So if you're a Leaf fan and this guy, just go on there and start hammering away at him.
If you want a glory block,
Yeah, just go on there and hammer away at
He's
this
the guy
He
to
can't
target.
take it. Speaking of can't taking it, what about what's his name? I don't even want to say his name. The Boston Bruins.
Speaking of targeting, like Jack Edwards with just a gutless dress down of Pat Maroon, calling him Fat Pat and all this. Now, I know back in junior in his early career, it was kind of a jokey nickname that he had with teammates. You're not his teammate. Don't call him Fat Pat on the air. And he's like, disgusting. He's had some pizzas.
That weight was from
3 straight Stanley Cups.
First game of training camp. He's had a lot of pizzas since then.
You know what?
Come on. Pat Maroon handled it perfectly.
Jack Edwards.
Yeah, but listen, you know what? That kind of crap should not be allowed, I don't think. And it's like,
it's just
and I said to you off the air, he should be suspended. Like, the league should have been able to step in there and do something. Or even the network he works for should have said, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable.
They like him, he's
of course they like him. He's like the Joe Bowen, and I'm not saying I don't want to compare him to Joe. I don't want to compare him to Joe because he's not. But all I'm saying is the fans love him for some reason. They love him.
I think though, fans. My general consensus gathering on Twitter is people are starting to kind of run a little thin with him.
Well, they should
there. So yeah, he's not my favorite. And hey, far be it for me. It's my dream to be a play-by-play guy. I'm not trying to crap on his play-by-play style, but just the stuff he says sometimes you're just like, come on, man. What are you doing dumping it? Where are your 3 cup rings, Jack? Yeah. You never had a slice of pizza? Come on. I thought it was lame. Anyway, I wasn't very appreciative of that. But Pat Maroon took the high road. He made a donation for different types of things like eating disorders and body shaming and stuff. He made a great donation down in Tampa, and people have really piled on and started donating in Jack Edwards' name, which is pretty hilarious. All right, we'll wrap up the show here just quickly. I just want to say we don't really do this that often, but we lost a rock legend this week, man. Christine McVie of Fleetwood Mac, man. Just so sad. My favorite member of Fleetwood Mac. Just really sad news, man. And she wrote all their best songs, in my opinion. Sweet Lies and all that. Dude, Christine McVie, what a legend. We lost her. It's just very, very sad. So rest in peace. She was a rock goddess, and it's just sad to lose people like that, man. All right, we really appreciate our friend Omar White for joining us on the show.
Lionel Richie got put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. We should mention that.
Did he really? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
he should be. He should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
There you go.
That is what he was looking for. So good for Lionel. That's great. Good for him, man. He's a legend too. But yeah, obviously, our thoughts with all the Fleetwood fans out there, myself included.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks to our friend Omar White and of course Julian Staehli of Lucknow for joining us this week on the show. Remember, you can watch us Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9 with our friends on Whiteman TV. That's channel 6 for Whiteman subscribers. We debut on our YouTube channel every Friday night at 9. Follow us on social media at Instigating Pod, and remember to support our great sponsors, including Coolbet Canada, Listowel Squash Courts, Listowel Vision Care, and See the Game.
Squash. I'm seventh. I got my ass handed to me last week. Nicole beat me 3-1. I wasn't in it. I just couldn't do anything. So a rough
one for you.
A rematch is coming for sure. On that one. No question about it.
Listen, folks, get on the Listowel Squash Courts website. Get registered with our buddy Al.
I saw Al.
You can take down Clarkie 3-1 too.
I saw Al this week. And Al goes, "You better mention it on the show this week that you lost to Nicole because you always brag about winning." So yeah, full marks to Nicole for beating me. Gonna play on Saturday morning.
It's a big man.
So we'll see how that's gonna go. But it's still Jacob's ladder. Jacob's still number 1 as we speak. So I'm 7th out of 30.
Number 1 at the box office. Jacob's
ladder.
And
Sandy,
how about that?
Sandy's not making an appearance. She had a little dental surgery this morning, so she's a little under the weather, but she's recovering fine. Just so you know.
That's good. Well, we know you'll take care of her, just like you take care of all of our great guests on the show and our viewers with your great, very non-biased insight when we talk about the Maple Leafs.
That's right.
All right. We'll be back next week with more instigating. Thanks for watching.